Fastamaya as Falcheriu does Shiaght Laa, Mish Maralyn Crellin. I'm Maralyn Crellin and I'd like to welcome you to Shiaght Laa. In Shiaght Laa this time, Shiaght Laa and Shiaght Shaw, and Shiaght Eastertide, a movable feast with some traditions and sayings associated with it, so it's a chance to explore some of those.
Although the name Easter derives from a pagan goddess of female fertility, and even though as a movable feast its date is still worked out from the phases of the moon, Easter in the island has largely become associated with the Christian tradition, but not entirely.
In the lead up to Easter, there are related Manx names for Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday, which are Inid and Laa Inid, the eve and the day of the Inid. And J.J. Neen says that Inid comes from the Latin word initium, the start, because it's the start of the 40 nights and days of a Cargis, which is Lent. J.J. Neen says Cargis again comes from the Latin name for the period Quadragesima. So we have Inid and Laa Inid marking the start of the Cargis. But there's no special Manx name for the Sunday before Easter, Palm Sunday. Bishop Phillips in the early 1600s introduced Dunach Phelim, the Sabbath of the Palms. Today, Thursday the 17th of April, is Maundy Thursday. The word Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, a commandment, because this is the day when Christian churches reflect on the Last Supper, when Jesus washed the feet of his disciples and commanded them to love one another. However, whilst the churches celebrate Maundy Thursday, because the Last Supper is the basis of the Eucharist, Holy Communion, again there's no Manx name for it. Over the Eastertide, Good Friday is known simply as Shiaght, the Friday of Easter. This coming Sunday will be Shiaght, the day of Easter, and there was a custom kept on Julian Power, Easter Monday. There isn't a particular name for the Tuesday, though the Tuesday in Easter week is specified in the statute, which we'll hear later. As there's no particular Manx custom associated with today, Maundy Thursday, let's look at Shiaght, the Friday of Easter, Good Friday.
Dr. John Clegg's Cynnycht Manarach, Manx Reminiscences, says, Shiaght, Barney son Angel, Owen as yeast son Jenair, Good Friday, flitters for breakfast, eggs and fish for dinner. Well, flitters are limpets, and when Mona Douglas joined the Isle of Man Times as a reporter in 1963, she contributed a series of articles which were republished in 1965 in a collection called This is Ellen Mannin, and she has this to say.
A curious custom was that of the flitter dancer. This was performed on Good Friday when no other dance would be permitted, and is, I think, a ritual dance, survival of a very ancient ceremony of propitiation or sacrifice to the powers of the sea. It also survived, perhaps still survives, in Uist of the Hebrides, as recorded in that treasury of folklore, Comina Gadelica, though there is no mention of a dance being performed there. Part of this old ritual does still survive in this island, in that many people still go to the nearest seashore on Good Friday to gather flitters or limpets, and sometimes they cook and eat these at a picnic meal on the beach. But the whole business 50 to 100 years ago used to be quite elaborate. A fire was made of macuracan gathered on the beach, and cakes of barley meal were made on the spot and baked in the hot ashes. They were mixed and moulded by hand, and sea water was used in the mixing. Neither knife nor griddle could be used, as the Arrane shortbread had to be made without touching iron or steel. The flitters were also baked in the ashes in their shells, and then everyone ate of them and the cakes and drank milk. After the milk, all food and drink remaining was carefully gathered up and cast into the tide, with the words, "Go sure as Banny Arrane, take this and bless us." The fires were then raked out and the flitter dance are performed over the ashes by everyone present. The dancers forming a chain of couples which wound about in the shape of an S, dancing a curious stamping step apparently intended to stamp out the embers completely. The air belonging to this dance strikes me as very ancient, probably the oldest of all our Manx tunes.
Mona Douglas's account mentions drinking milk, but fair yw Ysbania Jehenia Cheish, Chavawe Erdoshag Erablain. The one who'll drink milk on Good Friday, he won't find a bird's nest during the year. That's a saying recorded in Wood's collected Proverbs. George William Wood, about 1852 to 1927, was an avid collector of Manx manuscripts and books, and it's his library that was bought to form the nucleus of the Manx Museum Library. His wife Augusta was a cousin of Dr. John Clegg. Wherever Wood's collected that saying, he says of it, meant, I suppose, to deceive the children, because at that time of the year milk was often scarce. Fair yw Ysbania Jehenia Cheish, Chavawe Edd Usha Geraflain. The one who'll drink milk on Good Friday, he won't find a bird's nest during the year.
Va Joseph Train na honia mel Albanach, ach va an seg an yes, Shanachus, as veina uchte as navad. Ons hockey jeg as nanjeg, ve pointed de hovrica ons Ayrshire as na Sanma ons Galloway. Va fissega Mannin as de rawi count rish and droch rachter. Ger de Jack Mannin Kionica, Yorish croon na Goldie, ons shachi jeg tree feeders queg. Ons hockey jeg queg as died, screw e lior machiaun Mannin, ramji got vai bun and clowet, ach henke dus Mannin, as ye en a rollican ni call, as rene screwn and vow ons cashed or Russian. Te delen yes rish beel arish as shan chiachtachen feathernet ons Mannin.
Joseph Train's historical and statistical account of the Isle of Man from the earliest time to the present date, with a view of its peculiar customs and popular superstitions, has this to say about Jehenia Cheish. Good Friday, which is observed as the anniversary of the crucifixion of our Saviour, is in some instances superstitiously regarded in the island. No iron of any kind must be put into the fire on that day, and even the tongs are laid aside, lest any person should unfortunately forget this custom and stir the fire with them. By way of substitute, a stick of the rowan tree is used. To avoid also the necessity of hanging the griddle over the fire, lest the iron of it should come into contact with the spark or flame, a large bannock or sothag is made with 3 corners, and baked on the hearth.
Josephine Kermode, the poet Cushig, collected a piece of folklore from Mrs. Clegg of Niarble, who told her ironing clothes or heating an iron was considered wrong on this day.
That's from the days when an iron had to be stood near the fire to get hot enough to use. But iron wasn't to come into contact with fire on Good Friday, a superstition associated with the iron nails used in the Crucifixion. Those are two variants of the tune of a carvel, an old Manx religious song, and it's become very popular as a Christmas carol as Egan ons Bethlehem, a child in Bethlehem. Carvel singing was a tradition of the Christmas Eve service, the Ilveri, but many carvels don't refer to Christmas time at all, or if they do, it's only in part. That's the way with this particular carvel, even though it's called Carvel and Nullic, a Christmas carvel. There are 5 verses in the full carvel with the final line, Egan ons Bethlehem, a child in Bethlehem. And in fact, just before them, there's one that ends, Ruggich ons Bethlehem, born in Bethlehem, but that verse hasn't been brought into the trimmed-down Christmas version. However, there are 20 verses to the carvel in all. And although it's named Carvel and Nullic, actually there's more here about Jehania Cheish, Good Friday, and Surrance Calvary, suffering on Calvary.
Although Laa Cheist Easter Sunday is a time of celebration amongst Christians, the day itself was thought to be unlucky. Ein hig Arrane and Cheist a Jine Mona grace. The lamb that'll come at Eastertide, it won't get much grace. In other words, it won't prosper. That's another proverb from George Wood's collection. His wife was a cousin to Dr. John Clegg, and we've heard from John Clegg's Cunyacht and Mannin, Manx Reminiscences. He used to go to the house of Thomas Moore, Brookfield, Port Arrane, for help in writing the book. Thomas Moore told Cyril Payton about his grandfather that he wouldn't allow members of the household to go out on Laa Cheist for fear of accidents, with its being an unlucky day.
Dr. John Clegg writes in his Cunyacht and Mannin, Manx Reminiscences, Ein chit as na hoon eg a cheish, ve smunyach na rawe vai. Chickens coming out of the eggs at Easter were thought not to be lucky. Ein chit as na hoon eg a cheish, ve smunyach na rawe vai. The tune of that Easter hymn was by Robert Callin, 1859 to 1934. He started work in the Foxtel lead mines as a child and later went on to become a blacksmith. However, he found his calling in the Isle of Man Constabulary in the 1880s, and then he went as a jailer of the Isle of Man prison, and he won a medal in recognition in his meritorious service there in Victoria Road in Douglas. He was a prolific hymn writer, and in that version the words were by John Samuel Bewley Monsell, who was from Northern Ireland, an Anglican churchman who wrote more than 300 hymns. And whatever Thomas More's grandfather thought of Laa Cheis as being an unlucky day, there was a Christian celebration. Awake, glad soul, awake, awake, thy Lord has risen long.
And so to Julian Power, and the following day, the Tuesday. The Clerk of the Rolls, Thomas Stowell, compiled the statutes and ordinances of the Isle of Man, which were printed by Christopher Briscoe in 1792. Amongst them is this:
The minister or proctor to whom the small tithes and offering money belong shall sit in the parish church on Monday and Tuesday in Easter week, after the people have received the communion, there to receive their dues. And whoever shall not pay the same on one of those days, the minister and proctor shall proceed against them by citation before the ordinary or his officers, and that in such cases the minister and proctor shall have the speediest and strictest course that may be from the ordinary for the recovery thereof. And in that same act Thomas Stowell quotes, that all proctors ought at Martinmas, which is the 11th of November, proctors ought at Martinmas to put in a book all small tithes within the parishes, that's to say, purs, calves, and colts, and to receive them from the husbandman at Easter. The purs were feral pigs which were put to fend for themselves and fatten up on the mountain lands.
As me shen, to shen pert Jane of our tacket ons Mannin ega Cheist. Already running from Monday the 14th of April and going through until Friday the 25th, Manx National Heritage is holding an Easter egg hunt on its southern sites. You can search Castle Rushen, Rushen Abbey, Cregnish and the Nautical Museum to discover how many eggs are hidden around each site. Once you have visited all the sites, you can write your answer on the entry form and place it in the box. And there'll be a draw on Friday the 25th of April to find out who's going to win a large Easter egg. There's no age limit. As the event organiser Carolyn Gregor of M&H says, you're never too old for chocolate. Tomorrow evening, Good Friday the 18th of April, at 6:30 in Arbury Parish Church, the Meadowside Choral Society, with their musical director and conductor Julian Power, organist Gareth Moore, and with guest soloist baritone Jeff Collier and tenor Bill Creer, as well as the Choral Society's own fine soloists, will be giving another performance of John Stainer's The Crucifixion.
It's just a glorious piece to sing, and of course we all love doing it. Not only is it popular, it's so enjoyable for the audience or the congregation because we have 5 hymns to join in. Absolutely everybody can join in, and it takes just less than an hour to perform, so it's not a long event. It's performed without interval and just goes through to the end, and it's very emotional, really.
That's at 6:30 tomorrow evening, Good Friday the 18th of April, in Arbury Parish Church. On Monday the 21st of April from 11 o'clock to 3:30, there are Easter celebrations taking place at Cregnish, with a decorating workshop in the morning, leading up to a best dressed egg competition at 2, with egg rolling challenges to follow for under 5s, over 5s and for adults. The afternoon finishes off with a welly walk at 3 o'clock. Usual admission applies.
In Easter week, the Pan Celtic Festival gets underway in Carlow Town in Ireland. One of the organising team for An Cheshire Chilgach is Nicola Tooms.
So it starts this coming Tuesday, April 22nd, and it actually finishes on the Saturday on the 26th, but there are a couple of things happening on the Sunday, yeah.
Now, as I say, you've just taken over this. What have been the challenges for you in it?
Well, very big shoes to fill. Just trying to find my feet really this year. So we've actually taken it over as a subcommittee of An Cheshire Chilgach. So myself and Julie Matthews and Ailey Shiatt really have taken it on by committee. But because it's fallen in school term time, I'm the one who's going this year. So yeah, it's just finding my feet because I've never actually been as a participant before. So just getting to know everybody over there. They've been really helpful by email, like they've been answering all of my questions, but I keep finding out, oh, I've got to do this as well and I've got to do that. So yeah, this year will be just sort of, finding our feet as a new contingent and figuring out how we're going to go forward.
And it's a smaller party perhaps this year than it has been in the past.
Yeah, well, Fiona put together really quite a big party last year. There was Jack McLean and Owen and Mira were there playing as like sessions, and Sue went with her song, and then the winning song, Matthew and Sarah and Mira went as a competitive contingent, and then obviously Fiona was there singing as well, and Claire and Margie went as well. But yeah, they were quite a big side last year, so this year I have warned them we'll be a much smaller contingent, but they're happy with that. They've said, just come, figure it out, enjoy the festival. Obviously the most important thing is that we've got Sue and Rob there performing in the actual main competition after their winning song from the Arrane on Mannin in January, so yeah.
Well, Sue Harrison, Nicola mentioned there, it's your song which is going forward and you're performing it with Rob. What was the background to the song?
I saw a short film about the Viking Celtic crosses, the 10th century crosses, of which we've got a wonderful array in the Isle of Man. And I watched the video and someone reached out and touched the stones, and it was such a loving movement, and it inspired me to think that wouldn't it be wonderful if we could tell the stories from the stones? And that is in fact what Kiri Veg, that's what she can do. So that's what the song is about.
Rob came into it quite late, didn't he? But of course you've had a plenty of chance to practice since then.
Yeah, Rob Middleton, star indeed. He put together a beautiful accompaniment for the song. And yeah, it was at the last minute, but that's kind of how I run my life. But yeah, he was great. Rob Middleton is great. And of course, James Harrison did the translation for me. And my Manx is not that good.
And last year, of course, you had a success, not in that particular competition, the Pan Celtic International Song Competition, but they also have other competitions, and one of your songs was successful in that.
Yes, in the traditional song competition, for the composition, old Jenny Rosemary McPhee won that section. Yes, so that was wonderful. We had a great time with Jenny.
You've had experience of Carlow then. How would you describe the festival?
Well, it's a wonderful array of Celtic cultures coming together. And I had no expectations, had never been to any of the festivals, the Celtic festivals, and it was absolutely wonderful. And if anyone is over in Ireland, then they should make their way down to Carlow because it's fabulous, it really is. One of the highlights for me, I think, was seeing some of the Welsh choirs. They toured the pubs, and the volume of sound you get with a big choir, and it was absolutely fantastic. We had a great time, and thanks for all the support for getting us there. We did have a wonderful time.
The festival is actually live streaming some of the events, so people here will have a chance to see you, in fact.
Yes, if they feel like doing a bit of live streaming. They live streamed the main competition last year, I think. So yeah, be great.
Yes, I think that's a great idea, Sue. I think maybe the Manx that are left behind could organise a live streaming party and get around the big screen somewhere and some drinks and some popcorn and cheer us on. I've already been asked by several people, you must text us the results as soon as it happens, so maybe they should just be watching it instead. So yeah.
Got a mind more, yeah. Thank you very much. Singer and guitarist Sue Harrison and Nicola Tooms.
one of the organisers of the Manx participation in the Pan Celtic Festival, which starts this Tuesday the 22nd of April. If you go to the Pan Celtic Facebook page, they live stream events, and next Thursday, Sue Harrison, with mandolin player Rob Middleton, will be taking part in the Pan Celtic International Song Competition.
As my shen tashin chit does Jerry Shiaght Laa here, sure. That's all from Shiaght Laa this time. So now from me, Lone Maralyn Crellin, sledding you.